Welcome back to another video. In this video we will check out a language called G#. This is just like if Golang and C# had a baby. So G# is a language that is built on the CLR, Common Language Runtime, in the .NET ecosystem. It brings a lot of promises of being a Go-like and bringing a lot of Golang primitives and constructs to a language running in .NET. This could be nice if you are a real Golang enjoyer, but you are forced by your mean evil boss to work in the .NET ecosystem. Let's have a look what differences and similarities we can find. In order to install G#, you of course need to actually have .NET and .NET Core installed on your system. You can do that by visiting Microsoft's website and download it for your operating system. This should work fine with both Windows and Linux as well. And once you have it installed, we can actually install the template for the G# project. Let's go ahead and copy paste this snippet here. We can see that it's now creating this template and building the project. And once you look at that, hello from G#. Opening this project in VS Code, we can see that it has scaffolded a bunch of files for us. Now, in order to make development with G# a bit more convenient and pleasant, there's actually a VS Code extension that you can use. If you do not use VS Code, there is a language server, so you might have a possibility of hooking it up, but I think the only supported really IDE is VS Code. So we can install this VS Code extension if you want to have syntax highlighting, IntelliSense and formatting and that sort of stuff. So now we are inside of our first G# program, and as you can see, there is not actually a requirement to have a main declaration or a main function, and where we can actually go ahead and run this directly with global top level declarations. So we can see the hello from G# here. You can very easily run this with the .NET run. Of course, if we want to be a bit more explicit, we can create an actual function called main, and functions begin with the keyword func, just like in Golang. And this will work exactly the same way. Now, the most important thing in a language, I would reckon, is variables and data. So how can we create a variable in G#? Well, there are multiple ways, in fact. We can actually declare it with either let or var or const. And this is a bit different if you're coming from Golang, because in G# you can actually have immutable variables. So I can define an immutable variable, say we say immute and set it to a random string. We can also declare a mutable variable, which we can do with var. So this will be a mutable variable, so I call this 42. And we can very easily see this if we try to reassign this variable to something else, it will complain. If we run this again, we can also see that this is read-only and cannot be assigned to. This is different for mute, which we can happily reassign as we please. Now we can of course also output these with console.writeLine. There's a really nice string interpolation syntax here, so we can just do mut and that should work fine. If we have more complex expressions, we can also wrap it in braces. If we don't specify an actual value for it, it will take on a default value, just like you would expect in Golang. So in this case, we will see when we run this that the default value is 0 for int32. We can also sort of have an any type, just like in Golang, if we instead use the object keyword. So this mut here, we can assign a string to it, but we could also assign an integer to it, and this would also compile equally fine. A stark difference from Golang is that we have explicit nillability, so we have actual types for nillable values as well. So we have a string, and we can actually append string with a question mark to say that this is a nillable string. And in this case, we can't know that it will actually hold a value, but we also have this really nice nil coalescing operator. So in this case, we can be sure that we get back a string. So if I run this now, it should go into the default case because it doesn't have a value assigned to it. But if I were to assign hello from world, we would want to see that being outputted, and we can see that works. Another quite funky feature here is this guard expression, where we can actually assign a new variable if it has a value. Otherwise we can return early. So this is kind of like in Kotlin, where you can return early if this thing is null. And in this case we would just return default, otherwise we can return not nil, and it will effectively have the same output as before. But now we can work with this not nil because we know that it will be a string that is not nil. Of course, there are also slices in this language, so we can define a slice of integers and loop over them in a very easy way. The difference here is that this is not mutable in any way. If we want to have a mutable array, or a list really is what we want to be using then. So we want to use a list. So we wish to import this list from system collections generic, which is the namespace or the package that we would expect coming from the C# world. And this will work exactly the same way, and the difference is here now we can actually access things such as add. So we can add a value here, for example. And we can see that works equally fine. And when we deal with generics, in this case, we have this where the type parameter, we specify the type parameter within these braces, just kind of like you would do in Golang, but it has a little bit of a different syntax. But yeah, we can see that we have a list of int32, so we can append to that without an issue. Of course, we also have dictionaries or maps. The only difference here in the syntax is that we specify this with a comma instead of writing it outside of the braces. So we can say that this is a string to string mapping. And if we try printing out what the value of Jan is, we get back dough, exactly like we would expect. But perhaps we want to declare our own data types. And if you come from Golang, you know that your best favorite friend here for this is the struct. And of course, we also have structs in G#, but we have a lot of different variants, and we also even have classes. So the good old usual struct is just struct, and we can just declare it like this. Here we have to specify if the fields themselves are in fact mutable or not. So we can say that we have an immutable string with let, and then we can have another one which is actually mutable. So if I say this is a mutable string, then we can specify that with let and var. To define an actual function on a struct, we would have to declare it within the struct bounds, so the struct body itself. We don't use receiver parameters like we would do in Golang. Instead, we define it inside of this brace here. So we would say func, and we can say something like run, and maybe we want to print out what the value of mute here is, for example. When we run this, we get no output, of course, because we haven't specified a value, so it will use the default value of an empty string. But of course, we can define a value for this without any problem, and it will print it out. Something worth noting here is that we can declare the entire variable itself as immutable, so the str here is actually immutable, which means that we cannot assign to a value or a field stored within the struct. So if I set a different value here, we can see that it will fail because it's read-only. So if I wanted that, I would have to make this an actual var. And like I said, we can also declare classes in this language, and the difference between the class and the struct is that this is actually a reference type, so it will be stored as a pointer. So whenever we make a change to something, then all of the other ones that are referencing the same class will see the same output. In this case, we have a struct. It will actually create a copy. If I create a var str2, this will be a copy. When I mutate this, it should not change the original struct. This should, however, be the case for the class. So if we try this out and do .NET run, we can see that we get back hello here. So this is the original struct. We did not change that. But here we just have sort of a copy to the pointer. So whenever we change this value, we can see that it has changed the value in str3 as well. We also have explicit visibility modifiers here. So if you come from Golang, you know that you can declare the visibility through capitalization of the function names or the fields in this case. But if we wanted to make this run private, we would actually explicitly say that this is private. So we would say private func run, and we can see that this is no longer possible to be ran because it's actually inaccessible due to its protection level. We also have considerably more object-oriented principles in this language, of course, since we are in the C# ecosystem after all, that is very known to be extremely OOP heavy. So of course we have interfaces, but in this case we have a runnable interface with a function run, this will not actually be seen as an implementation. We do not have an implicit implementation here. So if I want this to be an implementation, I would have to specify that just like we would do in C#. So we would say that this is runnable, and it is in fact runnable since it has this run function. We can see that that will work, of course. We do in fact also have class inheritance, so we can actually extend classes as well, which is very different from Golang. But in order to do that, the type here itself has to be a class. We cannot actually extend a class as a struct. We can see that this can only implement interfaces, but if we wanted to do this, we would call it class. So my struct is no longer struct, but you see that that will work now if I were to actually comment out this. So you can see now when I run this, it will of course print out fun, since that is the run function in my class. But if I wanted to extend this with its own implementation, we might want to say the output of the mute variable. And if we run this now, we can see that this has successfully overwritten the original run function. So very different from Golang. I'm pretty sure most Golang developers would not be too happy about this sort of complexity, but we are in C#, of course, and we also want to have some sort of interoperability with the .NET ecosystem, so we need to have some sort of support for classes as well. Another pronounced feature of Golang is its error handling, which is also very different in the C# world. Here we have actual exceptions, and that's also the case for G#. So instead of explicitly passing around an error type, we have actual try, catch, and throw. So in our case, we can just run this. We can see that it will fail, but we will catch this failure. So we can see exception thrown. And if we wished to define our own exception types, we can do that by just inheriting from exception. And we have an actual constructor here where we can pass in the message that we want to pass into the superclass. So we will see exactly the same thing, except that we now have our own custom exception type. Coming from Golang, you might be wondering how concurrency is done in this language, and we can actually make it more Go-like by using this opt-in extension namespace G# extensions Go, which will give us our useful primitives from Golang like go, kind of go routines, select, close, and channels, and all of that sort of stuff. So we can get very close to something that you would expect from Golang. So one example here would be to define a channel, and here we can pass in some data. In this case, this is a bounded channel with specific capacity. Here we just pass in this, and then we actually read from the channel. So if we try running this with .NET Run again, we can see that we get back 32. We just read back what we have put in this channel, of course. So we can also declare async functions. The formatting is a bit weird now in this extension. I think it's a bit work in progress. But we can see that we can have this sort of async function where we delay for 1 second and then print something out. We also have this interesting scope block, which is kind of like waiting for this. We're kind of like synchronously waiting for this, and when we want to run this, we have to do go work, otherwise it will just be like fire and forget. But if we want to actually wait for this to happen, we need to go work. So if we go work, we can see that it will compile and then wait for 1 second before outputting anything. So what is nice with these scopes is that they will also surface any exceptions. So if I throw an exception inside of the scope, you can see that it will fail completely here. If I did not run this in a so-called go routine, it will just be fire and forget, and absolutely nothing will be printed because it will terminate before it actually reaches the end. So all in all, G# is a very interesting new language coming to the .NET ecosystem, which you might be interested in using if you come from the Golang world and you really want to bring in more Golang primitives and you like how Golang projects are structured, but you have to work in .NET. I would not say that it's production ready or mature by any means currently. It's very much work in progress, but I'm very curious to see how this language will evolve. If you want to check out all of the different features that I did not cover, there's a lot of interesting ones that you can find out in the documentation here. Definitely more than I could cover in this video. What do you think about this interesting G# language? Feel free to drop a comment down below. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.